Hi, welcome to this week's Authors Love Readers podcast, where we delve into the stories behind the stories. We're asking authors questions, some of them fun, some of them serious, and from their answers, you're going to learn things you never knew about the people who write the stories you love. My name is Patricia McLinn. I'm your host and designated question asker.
I'm Laura Marie Altom, and I'm an author who loves readers.
Now, let's start the show. Hello, and welcome to this edition of Authors Love Readers, the podcast. Today, we have Laura Marie Altom as our guest, and we were just chatting a little bit beforehand, and we were saying this is going to be interesting because we don't know each other as well as a lot of the previous people that I've had on. We would have had to be friends for 30 years to know each other as well.
We better get started. Yeah.
Well, we're at least a year in, right?
Oh, definitely.
We were part of a group effort called Rodeo Nights with a K, Knights, where we all released a book in mid-June, June 20th. And it stemmed from 3 books that were originally done about Rodeo Nights with Elisa Mondello,
Lenora Worth, and Margaret Daly.
Margaret Daly, right. And they had done these 3 connected books 2 years before. And then they said, come back, and invited 10 of us to write books that touched on the same, connected to the same characters, but took the series in different directions, which was really interesting. And we were on a group, and we would, say, well, I'm doing this with them, or, if so-and-so gets married at this point, what does that do to, the previous characters have to attend the wedding. so they can't be out doing something else that weekend. And Laura's book is Renegade. Such a great title.
Thank you.
Immediately makes me think of the song.
It's such a great song,
isn't it? So tell us a little bit about your story, Renegade.
It's it's part of my SEAL Team Disavowed series, which is a first for me because I'm kind of known through Harlequin for baby books, but I really love adventure books. So I've been doing this romantic suspense series with SEALs, and Margaret Daly, who you mentioned earlier, is kind of my bestie. She lives like a mile from me, and she writes really awesome romantic suspense. And we were just talking at Olive Garden one day, and I said, I've never done a serial killer book, but gosh, that seems just really harsh. I don't know if I could do it or not. And she's like, yeah, you can do a serial killer. So we just did a serial killer. But it was like, I'd never done anything that grisly. And I had to do quite a bit of research, on blood coagulating, just really creepy topics that I wasn't in my normal wheelhouse. But I was real happy with how it turned out. And it just took some crazy turns.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you if you found that doing that research affected your mood.
It did, and it made me just feel real, icky. Then the book after that, I had to research, nuclear weapons. And, I was on those websites and, trying to get off really, really quick. So I didn't get on any crazy FBI lists or something. But, yeah, no, it was not a happy subject.
Hey, authors could keep the NSA occupied full time.
I know, right?
If they start going down the rabbit hole
scary.
Of our searches. So, okay, let's go back and ask some short, fun questions here, just to get to know you better. What's a surprising job that you've held?
I used to be a nurse's aide. And I guess it's not so much surprising, but a friend of mine one summer, her mom was like a hospital administrator. And this was back in the days when nurses wore hats. And it was just very, formal and lovely and just kind of a romanticized profession. Where it's still a fabulous, if I wasn't a writer, and I think that's one of your other questions, but I would definitely be a nurse because I love them. But yeah, it was just such an amazing job. Just loved it.
Hard job, too.
Oh my goodness, yeah, I'd go home, my feet would just be killing me, but just so rewarding.
That's terrific. Oh, yes. Great. We said if there was dog barking on this, we would we would just keep going because we both have dogs. That was Chewy, you said?
Yeah, that's a Yorkie.
Okay. And we were trying to determine whose dogs, whether her 3 dogs would outbark my 1 dog or not.
I win. Yay.
Well, she went first. We still haven't done volume yet. Okay. What's your favorite color and why?
Oh, I love aqua. And so, but not just any aqua. So, like, think if you're like in Bora Bora or the Maldives or even Mexico, like that kind of aqua of the ocean where it's like really sandy, but blue and just like barely there. Does that make any sense at all? But
well, I'm going to have to go to Bora Bora to
yeah. I mean, I've only seen it in pictures. I call it like Caribbean blue or tropical blue, but just that crazy iridescent blue.
And so you associate it clearly with the water.
Right.
So
right.
Okay. That's a wonderful color. Do you have a favorite taste?
Butter.
I love that.
Ranch dressing.
I like butter better. I think I'm with you there. Okay, most writers have a bad habit word in there that keeps cropping up, and a lot of us go back and check for it and take it out. And I have already admitted here that 2 of mine are just and really. Very slips in
Oh my God.
Too.
Just really very seeing how there's like the phrase seeing how such and such, and it doesn't even make sense, but yeah, very's getting very bad lately. I've had a lot of those, but they come out easy enough, so it's all right.
It's search and delete.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I do that with ands too, starting the sentence with an and.
Oh yes.
But then there's some that need it.
Sometimes it works. It really does. Yeah. And I'm all about the rhythm. And I don't know, I was a band geek and all through school, and a lot of my writing is very like musical in a weird way. Like if it doesn't musically work in my head, then it's off.
Because you hear it in your head,
right? Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna. Do you when you're finishing a manuscript, do you play it back? Some people have the computer speak it back to them for a final edit. I do what I call a mumble through, where I have the manuscript and I mumble it. So I'm hearing the things. If I say it full voice, I lose my voice over the manuscript. That's why I mumble.
I can totally top that. I have to read through it, not just me, but in a fabulous British or Australian accent, and then I will catch everything. I do it like I'm performing a play. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
No, and the dogs just look at me like, you are crazy. There you go. Anyway, no, I just read it out loud in the craziest accent. And sometimes the accents blend, but I don't know, it makes it just fun instead of just, drudgery. Because at that point, you've read the thing so many times, you just never want to see it again.
Well, I wonder if doing it in an accent too kind of separates you, gives you a little separation from knowing what it should say.
Oh, maybe that's
which is a lot of times when you've been working on a manuscript a lot, you stop seeing the errors because you know what it should be, and that's what your mind fills in.
Interesting.
That would be very interesting. If I could do accents, I'd try.
Oh, mine are atrocious, but it's just fun.
That would be fun. Well, you should record one. Wouldn't that be a riot?
Really? There'd be great money in that if I could do my own audiobooks.
in an Australian or British
accent.
I know,
right? Have a whole new cottage industry. I get my arky twang out of there.
Do you have any strong fears, and do you use them in the book?
All right, I'm going to lay this out there because we've been friends 30 years, right? At least.
Well, we're starting in 30 years.
All right, when I was a little kid, my mother screwed up my summer camp. reservations. And instead of my usual cushy cabin setting with my 8 girls and, the pool and all that, I had to go to Pioneer Camp. Gag. So here, I still like my Marriotts today. So, I was out in the field, in this tent, in the bugs, in the weeds and everything else. And one night I got up to pee, and I'm thinking it was probably 50 yards. I swear to God, I saw a Bigfoot. It was white, like a white ape. It was the craziest thing to this day I have ever seen. And it scared me, like, even right now, like I kind of break out in sweat, like it was bad. And, I told counselor and everybody just went back to bed, and I just laid in my bed, praying I'd survive till morning. And, I've told my parents about it. My mother's like, oh, somebody was putting a costume on just to make fun of you. I'm like, Mom, it's like 3 a.m. Who's going to have a white ape costume in northern Michigan just to scare the children at 3 a.m.? Like, in this, when is this, the 70s? So, I don't know. But ever since then, it just creeps me out. Like, if I, so I'm kind of scared of the dark. That's a very long way to say I'm scared of the dark. Yeah.
Scared of the dark. Now, see, I have multiple questions. You answered one. I wanted to know where it was, and have any Bigfoot researchers ever contacted you?
Oddly enough, I used to dabble in a group, and I was so outside the norm that it just didn't work. These are guys who are very comfortable carrying around AK-47s and with the snake things and tromping through the woods. And, I just had my nails done, and I really don't need chiggers. And it was just a little much. But I did hear one time, I heard one of the wood knocks. And again, it was such a just visceral fear. I remember that it had just poured, and I thought, okay, good. We're safe. Nothing's going to get us after it rains. And the clearest, most vivid wood knock off, like you'd think you were watching one of the that Finding Bigfoot show or something. But, it was like somebody had taken a baseball bat to a tree. And, we were, there's no way. I was with the people we were with, and it took a good hour or two four-wheeling to even get where we were. So it wasn't anybody else. I don't know what would have made it. I still think about it to this day. I don't know what made that noise.
Then do you take the that fear, whether it's that specific fear, have you used, either fear of the dark or the more specific
Bigfoot? Say Bigfoot has made cameos in quite a few of my books, at least 3 or 4. And he's actually in the one, oh my goodness, it might be out right now. A Harlequin, it came out in November. I think it's called The Cowboy Seal's Christmas Baby. And my hero he thinks he hears a baby crying, and he's a horse whisperer, and he's taking this horribly scarred, mentally scarred horse on like its graduation ride in a hailstorm or sleet or some kind of storm, and hears a baby crying. But anyway, he finds a lady in a tent who just had a baby, and she can't remember how she got there or what's going on. But anyway, I kind of flirt with Bigfoot in that.
That's cool.
But yeah,
and sort of expiate it, that fear. Fight it that way. That's great.
And I have a fabulous Bigfoot t-shirt collection and little stuffed dolls. And yeah, but it's something that has stuck with me my entire life. Like I don't know what I saw. I don't know what it could have been beyond that. And I was old enough to where, wasn't like a little kid having a fantasy or something. I definitely, knew about boys, and, it was, I don't know.
So the two other questions, the one that occurs to me immediately is, was this on the way to the bathroom, or I hope on the way back?
No, it was 2. And I don't know. Yeah. I had to have wet my sleeping bag or something. I don't know. I don't have any remembrance of what happened after that, other than trying to wake my counselor. She just rolled over, and I climbed back in my sleeping bag, and that's all I remember till morning.
Aww.
Yeah.
Poor
You
kid.
know?
And did you ever go back to pioneer camp?
Oh, no. No, that was my last year I ever went to summer camp.
Okay, sort of a segue from that. Do you have anything from segues from Bigfoot are not easy. So,
No, sorry.
but do you have other earlier in life things that you fretted over that now you just don't care?
I guess when I first started this crazy journey of being a writer, I was just absolutely obsessed with selling my first book. And, it was probably my family and friends were just like, shut up already. You're never going to sell a book. Just shut up about the books. We don't care. And it was just an absolute obsession. Would I ever sell a book? So probably that's what first comes to mind.
How did you get interested in selling a book and wanting to write and publish?
My grandmother was just brilliant. She's a University of Chicago graduate and just all about the classics and always wanted me to read. And problem came in. Her and my grandfather, we lived in Michigan at the time, and they would winter in Palm Springs, California. And so I would go stay with them at their condo, and there'd be all these fabulous older ladies who were missing their grandkids, and they would just take me in. And so one in particular, I think her name was Helen, she would bring over sacks of Harlequin romances that she had read. And my grandmother, she'd say, here, these are for you, Laura. And my grandmother would just, I could tell, we're just going to take those straight to the Goodwill. And I read every one of them. I mean, I'd stay up just all night reading. And I think it was in junior high, it just occurred to me, well, I want to write one of those. So I set up a very strict schedule where I was going to write like a page a day. And I kept it up for probably a good 70, 80 pages. And that was on a typewriter. And I don't know, junior high happens. I found real boys and quit writing and stuff. I don't think I took it out again until college. But once I had my twins, affording daycare for twin newborns is just nuts. So we decided that I was going to stay home. And I think I was just cleaning out the attic one day and came across that manuscript. And I thought, and by this time, we had a PC, at our house that, and back in those days, all it had was a word processing program and probably Dig Dug or some weird Pong game or something. So, so that's history. But in those days, I guess there was RWA, but that was the only organization, and there were no self-help books at Barnes and Noble. There was no internet. You really had to want it.
Yeah, I stumbled into going to RWA because it's a long story, but a librarian helped me and said, we're having a talk here by a romance writer. And it's Kathleen Gillis Seidel, who is one of the original authors for Harlequin American.
Wow. Oh, that's my line. Huh.
And has done a lot of single titles subsequently. And there were 4 of us who went up to her after the talk. And within 2 years, 2 of us were published. One was the president of the local chapter. Don't know what happened to the other one. She was a slacker.
Yeah.
Kathy Seidel did pretty well out of that talk.
Oh, that's great.
So
that's a great story. Thank you.
Yeah, RWA has helped a lot of us, but there wasn't anything.
No, you really had to want it, and you had to be a detective about it. All of my first manuscripts were mailed in, and I didn't even know really how to do that. And I would print them on 100% cotton paper and make it all fancy.
And the first RWA Washington Romance Writers, which is the DC chapter of the RWA, first meeting I went to, a lovely woman named Nancy Richards Akers came up to me, first person to talk to me, and said, "What are you writing?" And a book.
Yeah.
Okay, one of my favorite questions to ask is, what 3 movies would you take with you to a desert island? I know this is weird Because how many desert islands let you play movies?
Oh, mine would, definitely.
This particular one.
No, it would.
So which 3 movies? But you only get 3 movies. So which
Oh,
ones?
you're so mean. Just 3, huh? Okay, I'm going to say Great Expectations, but the Ethan Hawke, Gwyneth Paltrow version. And it has amazing soundtrack. I really love the underdog story to it. They're both very beautiful. And just the colors and the cinematography, it's just fabulous. K2, which is a very underrated mountain climbing movie. I think Michael Biehn. Is he the one who played Terminator? I think so. Okay. Well, anyway, K2, fabulous mountaineering movie. If you haven't seen it, you should. And then let's go with Contact, because it's just such a... I remember seeing it the first time. It was so riveting to me because, you know, you got to think something's out there. And I really loved how if there is something out there, that really could be the way it goes down. I don't know. It just seemed very fascinating to me. And, you know, you can't go wrong with Matthew McConaughey. So, yeah. I'd have Ethan Hawke and Matthew McConaughey and Michael Biehn all with me on the island.
Okay, so that's the thread. I was trying to figure out. Aha. Now I see. Do you have a saying that your mother or father used to say that now you hear coming out of your mouth all the time?
I really don't. No, I mean, like, Grandma always used to say, like, "C'est la vie" and stuff like that. It'd probably be more of like you know, how your parents are like, "Yeah, we approve," but you can tell they don't approve, kind of a thing. I've caught myself doing that with my kids, and my kids are like 25, so really it's, you know, not my issue anymore, but it is. I made you, I will always approve or disapprove.
All right, so we have some questions from readers that I will kind of sprinkle in here, but let's start with one. And this reader says, where do your stories come from? I know one author who dreams her stories. Another has a character suddenly taking up residence in her head. So how are your beautiful stories born?
Oh, that's so hard. I used to have really vivid dream books, but they were like epic. And like, you know, back in the, I guess it would have been 80s, where they're like 500 pages long, that kind of stuff. And one that stuck in my head, it was, all I remember is that the hero rescued this, I don't know, let's say she was 15 and he was like an 18-year-old GI, and she was like a Hawaiian girl. And somehow he like took her in, and it was kind of just this sweeping saga of they never met up at the right time. Like, he somehow got her to school, and then while she was doing that, he got married, and then she was out of school, and then she got married, and then his wife died, and then, you know how back and forth they used to go. And I wrote out this crazy detailed outline, and somehow that got lost in the move, and it just made me so mad that I just never went back. But it would have been amazing, I have no doubt. But nowadays, it's almost like I don't have an organic flow to it, because I'm so scheduled so far out as far as series, or, you know, even my work with Harlequin. I have very narrow parameters as to what my brand is, in quotes, that it takes a little bit of the fun out of just being able to write whatever you want to write.
But you're doing some indie writing too?
Yeah, I mean, because I've got my Disavowed series, and it's planned up through 10 books. So, you know, I'm just starting 7. So, you know, I've got that. Then I just started a new SEAL Team Holiday Heroes, and I'm finishing up book 2 in that, but that would be a 12-book series. So I got a lot to go there. I do have some like Book of the Heart projects that are with my agent, but, you know, we'll just see what happens. Those would go with, you know, big 6 publishing houses. And then I've got other books that are just total. I want to write a dystopian so bad. and I've got one started. And my agent's like, oh, Laura, there's just no market for that. I'm just like, well, tell that to all the movies that are on.
Right. And tell that to your muse, to whatever is pushing you to write stories.
You know what? Just for fun, I might start writing 250 words a day on that book, just so I could have something, because I just want to write that book. I don't think I answered that question at all. I'm sorry.
No, that's quite all right. That's quite all right. So you mentioned the sweeping saga book idea you had, that you outlined it. Do you always outline?
No. Usually I will outline, well, I always have to do a synopsis for Harlequin. I would say I outline about, once I get to know my characters, maybe by page 100, just so that the story stays tight. I will then do a rough scene list. And I've been at this enough now that I kind of just organically know if something's going to work or not, or what it needs, a little more of here or there. So no to always formally outlining, but yes to just kind of listing the closer I get to the end of what scenes I want to include.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do your books tend to follow your synopsis?
Synopsis, no. Then even my list, synopsis, maybe 25%. The general flavor is going to be there, but I don't know about you, but my characters, they just talk, and they just kind of take over. And people show up. I'm like, who are you? You're not even supposed to be here. They just take over.
Well, one of the delights to me of being an independent author is I will never write another synopsis in my life. Oh my gosh,
they're horrible. They really are. They're just such a creativity sucker.
Now, when did you publish your first book? When did it get published?
I think 97. Yeah, my kids are 25, so they were born in 92. And my first book came out they were in kindergarten, so 97.
Do you think that having that first book published, did it change how you approach writing or your process?
Well, it made me think I was hot, you know what? And I was just a superstar, and there had never been any better writer in the history of the world. And I go back and look. I just got the rights back to that book, and I just kind of hang my head in shame, like, oh dear, oh dear. So if anything now, it's like, I know I have so much to learn, but back then, no, selling that first book, I was done. Like, get out my Emmy Academy Award, Rita, whatever you got, I've earned it.
That's interesting how we keep becoming better writers. And I think I've taught writing, and one student was saying they'd been editing this book for 3 years. And I said, stop. You just got to stop. And they said, but I'm better. I'm better. And I said, of course you are. But you're going to be on an endless cycle. You are never going to finish that book. You've got to let it go and go and write something else.
Yep.
And that book, you will be better at the end of it than you were at the beginning. And you've got to accept that and go on to the next
sister.
one.
Yep.
Where do you think your love of story came from? Do you think it was from from your grandmother and that friend of hers, or was it other things?
I was thinking about that. I think I was an only child and spent a whole lot of time alone. I grew up on the shores of Lake Michigan, and back then it was not like wild or anything, but there was lots of places that a kid could safely just get on their bike and not come home till dark. And I had this game that I'd play where I'd pretend I was Barbara Walters and interview just random miscellaneous people, whether they happened to be there or in my head. I don't know. I was a weird little kid. But, my parents, we got around. They were kind of hippies, and we were always they were real boaties, and not really yachties in a fancy sense, but more boaties. We always had a boat. We're always sailing. We crossed Lake Michigan several times. Mm-hmm. And I think I was alone so much that I just was, playing with my Barbies and spinning stories.
You've got to tell people who are not. I grew up in the Chicago area, and went to Northwestern, which is right on the western side of Lake Michigan. But you've got to tell people who maybe are not familiar with Lake Michigan that it's not a placid little lake.
And we were in a
sailing across it is impressive.
In a hellacious storm, and we left. And I'm sure there's a sailing reason for this, but we left at dusk out of, I think, South Haven, Michigan. And we were headed toward like the Milwaukee area, I think. I don't know, a couple hours in. And this was before radar. I mean, you didn't know if a storm was coming or not. And just hellacious storm. I mean, that boat was heaving, something terrible. And my dad, he loves to sail. I mean, he grew up in a family of sailors. And I just remember my mom, like, I kept wanting to peek my head out of the hatch, you know, and my mom, like, just pushing me back down, kind of like whack-a-mole, you know, like, no, just stay down. You're going to die. And I mean, just the water's, like, coming up over the bow, and, oh, it was bad. It was very bad. And actually...
Have you used
I need to, though. But the problem is and I've got another, this is another dream story I had. That I can't quite write because of the technical logistics. And if you're writing a book that's totally taking place on a sailboat, there is so much technical stuff you need to know to make it come across as realistic that it's just daunting. So anyway, no, I haven't yet, but yeah, that was quite an experience.
Unless you did it, either really close third person or first person from the point of view of somebody who was on the sailboat but didn't know sailing.
That's brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Thank you, Pat. Like, for reals.
You're welcome. I look forward to that. I look forward to seeing that book. Yeah, because then you have the emotion and you have the additional fear of the character not knowing what's going on.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. All right, you're going to get credit at the start of that.
Well, thank you. So do you have other books that are, now these are, well, the one you had outlined, but the more in your head, do you have books that are like half finished or completed but not published? And
so many.
So
many. Poor little orphan book babies.
Do you give, I feel that way about them too. Do you give up on them, or do you keep thinking, this can come together?
One of these, and it's not that I ended it. I just ended it. Just time restraints. There's just, and I got to break my Bravo TV habit, and then I would probably have tons of time. But and Lifetime movies.
Okay, readers out there, you have to get Bravo to stop broadcasting. Please, and you'll have lots more books.
But it just comes down to time, which I need to be a much better time manager. That's a good word. So, I mean, let's say, so I've got one called Kissing Frogs, and it's like a time travel where this prince comes back. And this was real old school. This was before I killed Dorchester Publishing. So I would love to do the sequel for that. And I've got probably the first 3 or 4 chapters, and they are really fabulous. Like, even today, I still love those chapters. And I got to get that out. I've got a little kind of a tween book called I'll Die If I Don't Make Cheerleading. And then the sequel is I Made Cheerleading and I'm Still Going to Die. And that's another one I'm probably halfway through. I need to just go ahead and just do it. Yeah, I've got a ghost book. Oh, my God, I'm just obsessed with it. And actually, Harlequin took a nibble on it, but for one of their online-only lines, and the terms were just atrocious. I'd rather just sit on it. But anyway, so yeah, I've got lots and lots of book orphans.
Yeah, I have a time travel, but just one time travel story idea, but it keeps coming at me. So
see, and that's the problem. How do you, I don't know if reconcile is the right word, probably not. But, there's such a tight focus these days on author branding. But, I want to do more time travels. I want to do a horror book. There's so many things I want to do. But it's not in my brand. And how do you do that? Just do it?
Well, I do, but that's part of being independent and, just wanting and doing what I want to do. So I started a mystery series, and I'm going to start, I think, another mystery series, and I have some other wild ideas, and I'm just going to do it and hope people enjoy it. But if they don't, here's part of my my philosophy is that if you please yourself as the author, that's the only time you are absolutely assured of having one person who likes the book.
True.
So, and you spend all the time with it, you spend months and months with it. So my first goal is to entertain myself and get far enough along in the book that when I hit the bad spots, I feel guilty if I don't complete it because I'm leaving these characters hanging. So that's my guilt to write books.
I can see that. That makes a lot of sense.
And now, do you have a writing routine?
My routine would be my lack of routine. I usually get up freakishly early, like, I don't know, between 5 and 6, and I'll get a whole bunch done by, say, 9. But then by that time, hubby's up, and he works from home now, and then he, travels when he has to go do other things. So he's a real imposition to my day, usually. So, yeah, once he gets up, it's just whatever whim strikes him. Yeah, as long as he's in his office working good, then I'm okay. But then, once I get out of that Goldilocks zone, it's really hard to get back in because then you start answering emails and
it is
marketing, your social media stuff, and there's always some little fire burning somewhere that, so, you know how it is.
It's always easier to click from the creative to the practical than it is from the practical back to the creative. Yeah. So you have to really protect that. And do you write in a specific place? You mentioned your husband's office. Do you have your own office too?
I have a fabulous office, and I absolutely love it. But I also have a 15-year-old deaf and blind dachshund, and she gets really disoriented. And so if I go upstairs, so then I have my the rest of the posse. So I've got this giant dog that's supposed to be my daughter's, but somehow he ended up mine, and he's kind of a lab mutt mix. And then I have my little bitty 4-pound Yorkie, and then I have Coco, and she's the blind one. She weighs probably 15 pounds. So I basically, to go up to my office, I have to have the dogs. So I have to have the dachshund, the Yorkie, my laptop, my reading glasses, whatever I'm drinking. It's just really easier just to write at the kitchen table. So that's where I am. So, bless her heart, one day Coco will move on to doggy heaven. But until then, she's content behind me. And I have my daughter thought of this idea where it's like a little settee for one side of the table and then 2 chairs on the other. So it's really comfy. So me and all 3 dogs fit very comfortably on the couch. So there I am. And now,
don't tell Callie that. She's not supposed to be on the furniture ever. Although I've got it, I know that she comes and checks on me and sees how occupied I am in my office, and then she comes down and lies on the couch in the family room. I thought she was checking on me,
of course
to say how much she loved me. No. No, it was to see if the coast was clear for lying on the couch.
Naughty.
Yes. So once you get going on a book, what's your favorite part of the process? Do you love, deep in the throes? Are you many of us talk about the middle being bad, but I know a few authors who love the middle. Are you one of those, or do you like the?
I really do. Writing is so uncomfortable. I don't know it's just. Once I'm in the middle, I have to get it out of me. It's awful. That sounds really weird. It's just the most uncomfortable feeling. And my mood darkens the more angst my people are going through. Like, I'll catch myself, like my mood kind of reflects them. And yeah, I just want it done.
That's why I wondered about the research, if that affected you. And I could see where the combination of that sort of research into serial killers and stuff like that, combined with the characters going through tough times, would really bring you down, and yet be a satisfying book to write.
It's a very, very strange process that I don't even understand. Like, I'll read the book, say months later, I'll, pick something up, or it's nice on Kindle now. So since I'm in a series, I can refer back to, book such and such and do a quick search on it, and I'll read it. I'm like, I don't even remember writing that. It's so strange.
Mm-hmm. Do you sometimes, you talked about your first book and reading it now and going, oh dear, but do you ever read things that you've written and gone,
oh, sure,
wow.
Sure. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's quite a bit. But I think when I say something's bad, it's like passive. And I say like a lot. Yeah, I need to cut all my likes. But just the passive phrasings of things. Like, I write so much tighter now that it's just very annoying to see huge chunks of just passive garbage. Like, just chop it off. Ugh.
I think that's something that a lot of us learn. And also the writing has changed in those years. So a question from a reader is, when you finished a book, do you find yourself missing those characters or thinking about them, where they are now, after the book, or thinking about different things in the book? And then I would add on the question to that of, has that ever led you to write a follow-up book because you are still thinking about them?
Probably not so much with my series books because they are so tightly deadline controlled. But I wrote a 4-book series for Love Swept that were all in first person, and those people are still with me. Oh, I love those books. So yeah, I think they're the only ones. And I mean, every once in a while I'll have some characters you like better than others, but
do you think you'll go back to those
probably
characters?
Not. It's very complete, and it's owned by the publishing house, so I really don't have any rights to anything. And I don't, as far as the world, I pretty much covered. I mean, you can always add somebody in, but I don't see it happening.
Which of your stories has surprised you?
Probably it would have been in that same series. And the 4th book in that series, I knew had to be centered around Garrett, who was just an absolute despised character throughout the first 3 books. And he was a straight up bastard, just a horrible person. And the things he would say to people, it was just like, oh, I would even think, how can he say that? So when it came time to do that 4th book, I just was like, how in the world am I going to redeem this guy? Yeah, I didn't even like him. How was I going to make a reader like him? And my editor, Sue Grimshaw, she's a saint. Absolutely adore her. She said, what if you did a stepbrother book? I'm like, what are you even talking about? She goes, well, there's this hot new trend where, people get involved with their stepbrother. I'm like, okay. I'm always game for an experiment. And lo and behold, it kind of came out that, like, Garrett's so grumpy because he has wanted Savannah literally his whole life, but it's so taboo. I mean, you just can't be with your stepsister. And, they're in no way, in any way, related physically, by blood or anything. So, yeah, he really shocked me what a fabulous guy he turned out to be. He fell on his sword for her. That book, I'm obsessed with that book. I love it so much. But, yeah, so that would be my surprise book.
Did that end up being a joy to write, or was it still
absolute joy to write? And the love scenes, oh my God. I found a certain song that just kind of fit the mood or the vibe, and I would just listen to that song on repeat. And I remember my daughter on Spotify, she's like, "Oh my God, Mama, it's so embarrassing. People are going to think that's me on my account listening, and it's you. Stop playing that song." So,
Well, what do you read for fun?
I read a whole bunch of action adventure, love James Rollins, and that's probably what's gotten me started on my romantic suspense. I love just what if, and just a little bit of bad guy and a little bit of romance and just a good mix of weirdness.
Okay, and then we have a question from a reader who says, when the cover image doesn't match the character description, and then the reader says, a pet peeve of mine, how does it feel?
It feels gut-wrenching. I remember, God, my poor husband, he's been through so much with me. I had this book called The Cowboy Seal, and this was supposed to be like an absolute breakout book for me. My editor was so excited. Harlequin was just super behind me. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I had invented the Cowboy Seal. And or with my editor and agent, we invented him at a conference in Anaheim, RWA. And when I got that cover, I told everybody, this is going to be the most epic cover of all times. It is the most ugly cover. I cried and cried and cried. Oh. I went to my agent. I said, come on now. Like, he looks deformed. Like, like aliens got a hold of him. You've got to do something. And, my agent tried getting them to change it. My editor's like, well, I don't know. I polled the office and they don't think it's that bad. I said, come on now. No,
they never do.
So, I was so upset. So yeah, if anybody sees the Cowboy Seal, I'm sorry. That's not what he looks like. And then my very first book too, if anybody really wanted to do deep research, Sentenced to Sabrina. Oh, you think, okay, my first book cover, it's going to be so amazing. And yeah, it's just really bad. So yeah, Google Sentenced to Sabrina, and it's like this nuclear green background, and it's just nuts. And I want to say she had really red corkscrewy hair, and she doesn't at all in the book. Okay, and the song is called Build a Home by the Cinematic Orchestra. And I want to say I grabbed it off of, I'm real bad about, or good about, grabbing songs, with Shazam while I'm watching TV. So I don't even know where I found it, but it is just absolutely stunning. Really love that song.
Build a Home. Okay. I'll have to listen to it. And what was the name of the book?
That book is Stepping Over the Line with Barrett and Savannah.
That's great. Here is another question from a reader, which I think this is fascinating. Some people haven't. If you could write a book with any author, alive or dead, who would you want to work with and
Laverne Spencer is an absolute goddess. Oh. She breaks every single rule so beautifully. I don't know how she does it. She will head hop. So for readers, that would be like the point of view. Like, the hero has a point of view and the heroine has a point of view. Mm-hmm. She will do it literally every other line. I actually did a workshop on this one time, and it's fascinating how she does it. But yet you never get lost. You totally know what's going on. She's an absolute, hands down, genius masterpiece. I love her. If I ever saw her, I'd probably broke down in tears and, just fall at her feet. She's amazing. And I just read one of her old books, and she started it with the hero drunk driving and throwing a beer can out the window. Who does that? You can't do that, but she did, and it worked.
Well, she's somebody who said, I'm retiring and, not going to write any more books. Would you consider doing that?
No. Why? My people need me to come out. No. My character people.
I understand that completely. My head would get so clogged.
Yeah, exactly.
What would you do with all of them, right?
Right.
So,
What else would I do in general? I mean, really.
on that, I could find things. I would read. I would sit and read, I think.
Well, yeah.
And so, coming back to readers, have you had any great encounters with readers?
Oh my God. I have this sweet couple. I think they live in Manchester, England. And every year for my birthday, they send me this giant box of English chocolate and candies. And it's gotten to the point now where the whole family, oh, I know, right? So the whole family is like, oh my God, you got your birthday box. And if you've never tried Maltesers, oh my God, like they're just absolute chocolate heaven. It's like a malt ball, but something about English chocolate, it doesn't have that waxy kind of, like it just melts instantly. It's amazing. But anyway, Louise and Stephen McLinn, I love you, and they're fabulous.
How did that start? Had they read a particular book, or do you know?
I don't know. Well, Louise started out reading my Control series that was put out through Love Swept. And we just somehow, you know how you become just fast friends with people online. And she just is so funny and quirky, and we just always got along. And just one day she asked me for my address and said she wanted to send me a present. I'm like, okay. Send me a present. And so then after that, then I sent her a box of American things. And it's funny, she loves candy corn. I'm like, nobody in America likes candy corn. Like,
oh, you have to send her Indian corn, though, instead of candy corn. You know, Indian corn has the chocolate. It's the brown and orange. And
I've never had that.
Brock's Indian corn. I love this stuff. And
okay, I'm gonna have to get on this.
I tell myself at Halloween that I cannot eat Indian corn because I can't eat candy corn because it's inferior to Indian corn, and I can't eat any brand except for Brock's Indian corn.
Brock's, everything they make is good.
So that limits my access to pure sugar.
Interesting.
Definitely.
All right, I'm gonna hunt now.
Indian corn because. Oh my goodness. It is, an immediate sugar delivery system.
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, so we've talked about several of your books. Which of your books would you say is the best place for a new to you reader to be introduced to your books, to find out if you're a good author reader fit?
Okay, I just redid my website, and because I do so many different kind of guys, I tried to think of a slogan, so I came up with a man for every mood. So, because I think I've got over 60 books now, so I cover a lot of different guys. So, if you like billionaires, you would start with my Control series. If you like seals, I don't even know, like it lists all my seal books. So if you like a seal just by himself, then there's those kind of books. If you'd like a seal who's also a cowboy, I got those. So then I have another section that has a cowboy. So those might just be a cowboy, or they could also be a cowboy and a seal. So what you do, so if you want to check me out, go to my website and you'll see the three guys. So just click on one of the three guys say, I'm really in the mood for a cowboy book. So click on a cowboy, and then you'll see all my cowboy books, and just pick the one that looks good. And any of my series, I try not to make it. Each book will stand alone, even within the series. I mean, you might get a little more reading them, in sequence, but you're not going to miss that much.
And what's your URL for your website?
It's just LauraMarieAltom.com.
Okay.
And I'm everywhere, and it's the same thing anywhere: Twitter, Facebook, my Facebook page. It's all just Laura Marie Altom, whatever, via Instagram. And Instagram is my fun place. That's where I, any kind of family pictures or just fun, goofy things. That's probably where I have the most fun.
Yeah, my dog is all over that. Oh, she's also
Yeah.
all over Facebook. And
Yep. Lots of dog pictures on Instagram. So if you want to see my crew, that's where they are, where I hang out.
So are any of your books what you might consider an overlooked gem? One that even your loyal readers, even those who send chocolate from England, might not have been familiar with or know about?
I have this little book. It was my first one published by Dorchester. At the time it came out, it's called Blue Moon, and I reissued it, Angel Baby. And that book is the first one that ever made me just break down sobbing writing it.
What's it about?
It features a super seriously down on his luck widower who has a baby who's failing to thrive. And I did quite a bit of research on infants who fail to thrive, and it's just heartbreaking. I mean, there's, they won't eat, they're losing weight, they're on a downhill slide. So one night he's cleaning the restroom in his diner and just feeling lower than low. And this woman walks in, and you can tell something's happened to her, but you're not quite sure. She's just not quite right. So she uses the restroom, and he goes about his work and doesn't really think much of it. And when he comes out, he finds her back in his office breastfeeding his baby. And actually, this was another dream I had. And I totally forgot that this came from a dream. But so right away, so he's got this issue of, okay, my baby is suddenly eating, and this is a really good thing. But on the flip side,
What the heck is this?
clearly this lady has a baby somewhere, that she should be with. Where is her baby? And obviously he contacts authorities. Authorities don't have a clue where she's come from. She doesn't know where she's come from. I love a good amnesia story, but that one just, oh my God. Oh, I still, when I think about when it all starts unraveling, it's bad. Just real bad. But anyway, in a good way.
Interesting that you mentioned amnesia, because I have amnesia. I have lost 3 days from a car accident.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't really want to write an amnesia story until I could figure out how to deal with it. So, oddly enough, my amnesia story has smart-ass humor in it. So my character pretends that she has amnesia.
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant.
That's how I dealt with. I think that was a way of working out some of my thoughts about losing these days from my memory, which had been really spectacular, but not quite so good after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you? Okay, so now the writer in me is kicking out. I got to know. Are you okay to talk about it?
Oh, sure. It was years and years and years ago. Yeah.
So what happened?
I was driving to work at the Charlotte Observer right after Christmas, and the last thing I remember is going out to my car. But from police reports and witnesses, I was driving 4-lane highway, not divided. I was in the left lane. A guy lost control of his car coming the other direction, and came 90 degrees across. And the witnesses said that I tried to go left first to avoid him, but there was oncoming traffic. So I pulled as far and as hard as I could to the right. Which meant that his car came into the driver's area of my car, and we ended up on the front lawn of a business. And then they said that they took me into the emergency room. They said that I'd regained consciousness. And what happened was a friend, who is also the wife of a coworker, came to the hospital to be with me initially. And she was the one who recognized that I was asking the same questions over and over. I was articulate. I would ask good questions, but that I wasn't retaining that I had asked them or what the answer was.
Wow.
It was quite the thing. They called my parents in Illinois and said, if the family's going to get here now. because I'd had blood pressure that dropped precipitously. And one time they figured out what it was and fixed it. They never really knew what the other time was. And the first thing I remember is that day, but very, very small snippets. I can remember tipping my head back and looking to the left and seeing the machine monitoring me and seeing the lines fairly regularly and thinking, well, that should be okay. That should be a good sign. And the next thing I remember was my parents being there. So this is, I don't know, 5, 6, maybe longer hours. Could probably more like 8 hours after. And my mom on one side and my dad on the other. And there's two things. I asked my mother 2 questions. Was anybody else hurt? And was it my fault? And the other thing I remember is I was holding their hands, and my dad had a cold, and he always had cloth handkerchiefs, and he had put a clean cloth handkerchief between our hands so I wouldn't get his germs. Goodness. And I can remember working my thumb to move the fabric to hold his to touch his skin.
Oh my God, Pat.
Yeah. So, and then the next thing I remember is like 2 days later when they were going to make me stay in the hospital longer, but my sister and brother-in-law and their 5 kids were supposed to come and visit for New Year's. And I told the doctor, you either let them all in, you either let me out, or you're letting them all in at the same time.
Right.
The doctor looked at my mother, and my mother said, she means it. So they let me out. Yep.
Oh,
but then it was
my goodness.
Then it was months and months and months where I would remember I'd asked a question and then I couldn't remember the answer. That was really hard. And
that had to be scary.
And the neurologist said in very technical terms, your brains have been scrambled. And
that's reassuring.
Yeah, that I had a severe concussion, very severe concussion. And,
wow.
I was just going to have to wait to see how things sorted out.
Whew, goodness, that's quite a story.
Yeah. I should use more of that in a book someday, huh?
I think you probably should. If you don't, I will.
Yeah. No, dibs. Dibs.
Isn't that funny? No, a lot of times, you gotta call dibs on those stories.
Yes. Now, what is your most recent book? Oh, you mentioned the one that was out in November. Do you have another one coming up?
I have the November one, and then I had December 8th, Christmas Cookie Baby Drop. And that is the first in my new SEAL Team Holiday Heroes series.
Okay.
And so my little tag on that is, see if I can remember, holiday fun with a dash of danger.
Ooh.
So they all open with kind of a life or death situation. And this one opens with a plane crash.
Oh, boy.
But this was fun. This was actually, I got the rights back, and I thought, this was the second book I ever did with Harlequin. And I thought, this will be fun, just a fun release. My readers will get to see it because, it's been out of print forever. And once I got diving into that, it needed a total rewrite. So even if somebody ever has read this, it's totally 1,000% redone. And that's been a lot of fun just to revisit those characters in the town. And so the whole series now is based out of this town, Kodiak Gorge in Alaska. And so I'm working on the second book now, and it comes out. So it's Happy New Year, baby. And it comes out December 29th. Please, God, if I can get it done in time.
Always the hope, right? It's interesting how you look at some of your old books, and some of them stand up so well and amazingly well, and then some you really think, okay, let's wrap up with. Oh, I want to say you gave your URL, and we will have that in the show notes.
Okay.
I always think it's much easier to read than and
your
head
for sure.
to listen to it.
For sure.
So for folks who want to explore that. So we're going to ask you some either or questions here, just to get, just for the fun of it, really.
Okay.
Cake or ice cream?
See, that's not that easy. Because What flavor of ice cream versus if it's white cake with white frosting, I'd got to go with cake. If it's like rum raisin ice cream, Haagen-Dazs, I'd got to go with that. You can't, like, I'm more complicated than that. Next.
Okay. Tea or coffee?
There again, is this like a mocha frappuccino with whipped cream? I don't see. And then tea, it's got to be, orange spice, or else I won't like it. I don't know. It's another toss up.
Okay, I think this one might be easier for you.
All right.
Dog or cat?
Oh, dog. Hands down.
Day or night?
Day.
Cowboy boots or hiking boots?
Hiking.
Really? Now that surprised me.
Love to hike. Love to hike. I would hike any day, anywhere.
Toenail polish or bare toenails?
Polish French, please. I like a nice French manicure with wide stripes.
Oh my. Okay. Very specific. Leggings or sweats?
Can I do yoga pants? What do those fall under?
Really neither.
You're teaching me a lot about myself, Pat.
You're not very good at either or.
No.
Okay. Gardening or house decorating?
House decorating, but I love both.
Paint or wallpaper?
Oh, I love wallpaper, but it's not in right now, so I got to go with paint currently, but I'm hoping for a wallpaper comeback.
Mustard or ketchup?
Oh, ketchup. Can't stand mustard.
Best china or paper plates?
Okay, if I'm on deadline, paper plates. Otherwise, best china.
Save the best for last or grab the best first?
Save the best for last, always.
Okay. Well, this has been a delight, Laura.
It has. It's been fun, Pat.
Really appreciate your taking the time and joining us today, and hope all of you will come back next week to get to know another author. That's the show for this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for joining Authors Love Readers podcast. Remember, you can always find out more about our guest authors in the show notes, and you can find out more about me at www.patriciamclinn.com. You can also send in questions to be asked of future authors at podcast@authorslovereaders.com. Until next week, wishing you lots of happy reading. Bye.